Long ago, when the world was still young and spring was a whispered promise in the air, there was a secret hidden beneath the roots of the oldest oak tree. It was a secret so ancient that even the wind seemed to hush when it brushed against the leaves of the mighty tree, as though the earth itself was listening. And in that secret, on the cusp of spring's first breath, a rabbit was born, one who would carry a magic older than time itself. Hello, my friends. Good evening. Tonight, we embark on a journey that will take us through the long whispers of time, through the scent of freshly blooming flowers, and beneath the endless sky, as twilight melts into the embrace of the coming night. As you settle into the warmth of your blankets, take a slow, deep breath. Feel the softness of the fabric surrounding you, the weight of the world slipping away with each exhale. Outside, the cool evening air drifts through open windows, carrying with it the sweet scent of jasmine and the earthiness of dew-kissed grass. You can hear the gentle rustling of the trees, their leaves swaying as though speaking in a language only the wind understands. The flicker of candlelight dances quietly in the corner of the room. Shadows shift and play along the walls as if they, too, are lulled by the soft rhythm of time. Perhaps a distant owl calls its name into the stillness, or the pitter-patter of raindrops taps lightly against a window, adding a gentle melody to the evening. Take a moment to notice the rhythm of your own breath. In, out, in, out. Let the world outside become distant as you focus only on the peaceful calm that now surrounds you. Feel your body sink deeper into your bed, each muscle relaxing, softening with each passing second. Tonight, we will journey together into a tale as old as the trees themselves, a story woven through centuries, carried by the flutter of rabbits' feet, and carried even further by the wind, which whispers it still. And as you listen, allow yourself to drift ever so slightly closer to sleep, letting the calm of this moment enfold you completely. In a small cottage on the edge of an enchanted forest lived a young woman named Elena. She was a healer, known by the villagers for her gentle hands and kind heart. Her life was simple, shaped by the turning of the seasons, the rhythm of the earth beneath her feet, and the soothing hum of the forest around her. Every morning, the golden rays of the sun would peek through the trees, illuminating the wildflowers that danced in the meadow just beyond her door. Every evening, she would walk to the edge of the forest, breathing in the scent of pine and moss, and listen to the birds bidding the day farewell. The forest had always been a place of magic for Elena, a place where time moved differently. There were whispers among the villagers of its ancient power, of creatures that dwelled in its heart, hidden from the human eye. But Elena, though she had grown up with these stories, had never believed in them. To her, the forest was simply home to the creatures of the earth and sky, deer, owls, and rabbits, all with their quiet, secret lives. But one evening, as the sky was painted in hues of gold and violet, Elena walked along the path at the edge of the forest, her thoughts lost in the rustle of the leaves and the soft, rhythmic step of her boots. She had just gathered a few herbs for a healing brew when something caught her eye. A white rabbit. It stood in the clearing, its eyes like polished amber, watching her with a strange, almost knowing gaze. Elena paused, heart skipping for a moment, unsure why this rabbit felt so different. It wasn't like the other creatures of the forest. Its presence seemed to radiate an otherworldly calm, a pull she couldn't explain. She knelt slowly, her fingers brushing the soft earth, trying to remain as still as possible, afraid to startle it. The rabbit tilted its head, its fur gleaming in the fading light of day. For a long moment, they both simply watched each other, and Elena felt an odd, deep sense of connection, as if the forest itself was drawing her in, whispering a secret she couldn't quite hear. Then, just as quickly as it had appeared, the rabbit turned and disappeared into the underbrush. Elena blinked, startled by how swiftly it vanished, and for a moment she stood there, feeling a tug of unease settle in her chest. The forest had always felt familiar to her, but now it felt different. The air had changed somehow. It was as if the earth had shifted, opening a door to something new, something that had been waiting patiently for her to notice. That night, as she prepared a warm tea by the hearth, there was a knock at her door. It was late, far too late for any of the villagers to be out. She opened the door cautiously, and standing on the threshold was a man, tall, with dark hair and eyes that seemed to hold the very essence of the forest itself. His clothes were travel-worn, and a long cloak hung loosely over his shoulders, as though he had journeyed far. "Good evening, miss," he said, his voice deep and calm, with an accent she couldn't place. "I hope I'm not disturbing you." Elena stepped back slightly, unsure of who this stranger could be. He didn't look like a traveler from the village, nor did he carry any of the usual signs of someone who had walked far. His eyes, they held a deep, almost unsettling depth, like the woods themselves. "I'm sorry to intrude," he continued, seeming to sense her hesitation, "but I've come to tell you something important. Before he could finish, Elena noticed something behind him. There, standing at the edge of the clearing, was the same white rabbit. Its eyes locked with hers once again, and she felt a strange shiver run down her spine. The man followed her gaze, his expression unreadable. "You saw it, didn't you?" he asked softly. "The rabbit," Elena whispered, almost to herself. "Yes, I saw it today in the forest. It was watching me. I don't know why, but it felt..." She faltered, unsure of the words to explain what she had felt. The man stepped forward, his movements graceful and deliberate. "The rabbit is a keeper of the seasons. It carries with it the ancient magic that stirs the earth, that breathes life into spring. And it has chosen you, Elena." Her heart skipped, and the room seemed to grow colder. "Chosen me?" she asked, voice trembling. "I don't understand." The man smiled faintly, though there was sadness in his eyes. "Not all secrets are meant to be understood at once," he said, "but the time has come for you to learn. The rabbit you saw is not just any rabbit. It is a creature of legend, a creature that has long been part of the cycle of life and death, of renewal and rebirth." He paused, his gaze lingering on her. "You are part of that cycle now, Elena. You have been called." The rabbit's eyes glowed in the distance, and the man's words hung heavy in the air. "There's much more to tell, but it must wait for another time. For now, I ask you to trust me. Trust that this path, this secret, is yours to walk, whether you are ready or not." And with that, the man stepped back into the shadows, vanishing as suddenly as he had appeared, leaving Elena standing in the doorway, her heart pounding. Why had the rabbit chosen her? What did this mysterious man know? And what did it all mean for the coming spring? Elena stood in the doorway, the cool night air tugging at the edges of her cloak as the mysterious man vanished into the shadows. The sound of at night seemed to press in on her, soft rustlings in the trees, the distant call of an owl, but everything felt distant, muffled, as though the world itself was holding its breath. She closed the door slowly behind her, feeling a chill crawl up her spine. The fire in the hearth flickered low, casting long, wavering shadows across the small room. Elena turned and stared at the warm glow, though it did little to ease cold that had settled deep within her. She could still feel the weight of the man's words, the promise of something vast and unexplainable. "You have been called." Those words kept echoing in her mind, swirling in her thoughts like the flickering flames. It was impossible to shake the feeling that something was about to change, something she couldn't control, something that had already begun. She had seen the rabbit before, yes, but tonight felt different. Tonight, the rabbit had carried with it a message, a warning, perhaps, or an invitation to something far greater than the simple life she had known. Elena walked over to the small wooden table near the window, her hands trembling slightly as she poured herself a cup of herbal tea. The liquid was still hot, steam rising in gentle curls, but she barely noticed the warmth. She needed something to anchor her, something familiar. The rabbit had appeared once before, many years ago, but at that time she had dismissed it as a mere figment of her imagination, a trick of the twilight. But tonight, with the stranger's presence and his cryptic words, she knew it was real. And now there was no going back. Her thoughts were interrupted by a soft knock on the door. Elena's heart leapt in her chest, and her breath caught in her throat. She hadn't expected anyone else to come. The village was quiet at this hour, and no one but the man from the woods had come by in weeks. She hesitated, then walked to the door and opened it slowly. To her surprise, standing there was the white rabbit. It was even more striking up close, its fur gleaming like freshly fallen snow, its eyes still glowing with that strange, knowing light. It stood perfectly still in the dim light of the lanterns, as though waiting for her. She blinked in disbelief. "You," she whispered, the words catching in her throat. The rabbit didn't move, but its gaze never left her. Elena felt as if it was drawing her in, urging her to follow, to understand what it had come to tell her. Her pulse quickened, and something deep inside her stirred. It was as if she could feel a heartbeat of the earth itself, pulsing in rhythm with her own. With a shaky breath, Elena stepped forward, and the rabbit darted into the night, its soft paws hardly making a sound on the earth. Without thinking, she followed, her boots crunching lightly against the grass as she stepped into the cool, damp night air. The moon hung low in the sky, casting a silver glow on the world around her. The forest loomed just ahead, dark and mysterious, its trees swaying gently in the wind. It felt like the world had fallen into a dream, where time didn't matter, and nothing was quite as it seemed. The rabbit led her to the edge of the forest, where the trees parted to reveal a small clearing. The air was thick with the scent of pine and fresh earth, and the sound of the wind whispering through the branches seemed almost like a song. Elena felt a shiver of anticipation travel down her spine. She stopped at the edge of the clearing, her eyes scanning the darkened trees for any sign of movement. And then, through the shadows, she saw him, the man from earlier, the the one who had come to her door with his cryptic words. He stood at the far side of the clearing, his silhouette just visible in the soft light of the moon. He hadn't moved since she arrived, but she could feel his presence in the air, heavy and still, like the calm before a storm. "You came," the man said, his voice low and calm. It was the same voice, though now it seemed softer, gentler, as if the woods themselves had taken part in its creation. Elena nodded, though she didn't know what to say. Her heart was still racing, but her legs felt rooted to the ground, as if the earth itself was holding her in place. The rabbit was now sitting at his feet, its eyes glowing softly in the dark. It looked at Elena once more, then at the man. "You know what this is about, don't you?" the man asked, his gaze shifting to a rabbit. "This is no ordinary creature. It is the keeper of a secret, one that has been passed down through generations, one that you are now a part of." Elena's throat tightened, and she could feel her pulse quicken once more. "What do you mean? What secret?" The man stepped forward, his cloak swishing softly behind him. There was a deep sadness in his eyes, something ancient and heavy, as though he carried the weight of the world upon his shoulders. "There is a balance in nature, Elena," he said slowly, his voice steady. "A balance that is maintained by forces far beyond our understanding. The rabbit, or rather, the creature you see before you, is the messenger of that balance. It carries the power to awaken the earth from its slumber, to bring spring to life. It is the herald of renewal." Elena blinked, trying to process his words, but they seemed to slip through her mind like smoke. "But I don't understand. What does that have to do with me?" The man smiled, though the sadness never left his eyes. "Everything. You are tied to this balance. You are the one who must help restore it." Before she could ask more, the rabbit shifted, standing and hopping toward the center of the clearing. The man's eyes followed it, and he nodded. "It has chosen you because the time has come. The earth is awakening, but it is not a simple change. There is a great danger ahead, one that threatens to unravel the very fabric of life." He paused, his gaze meeting hers, intense and unwavering. "And you, Elena, are the one who can stop it." The words hung in the air, thick with meaning. Elena felt her breath catch in her throat, the weight of the moment pressing down on her like a stone. The earth seemed to hold its breath as well, waiting for her response. "Why me?" she whispered, the question escaping before she could stop it. "I'm just a healer. I'm nothing special." "You're more than you know," the man replied softly, his voice full of quiet certainty. "And the rabbit will guide you, just as it has guided all who have come before you. But time is running out." Elena felt a wave of uncertainty wash over her. Could she really be part of something so vast, so important? She had always felt connected to the earth, to the land around her. But this felt like something beyond her. She looked down at the rabbit, its eyes glistening in the moonlight. There was something in its gaze, something ancient and knowing. It seemed to wait for her decision, as though it, too, was uncertain of what she would do next. The man stepped closer, his voice soft. "You don't have to do this alone. There are others who have been waiting for the right time to help. But you are the key. Without you, the balance will tip, and the earth will fall into chaos." Elena's heart raced as she tried to process everything. Her hands were shaking, but her feet were firmly rooted to the ground. The weight of the moment was almost unbearable. Finally, she nodded. "I will help," she said, her voice barely a whisper. "But I don't understand how. What must I do?" The man smiled, though his eyes remained serious. "The first step is to follow the rabbit, to trust in the path it will show you. You must go to the heart of the forest, where the magic is strongest, and there you will learn more." The rabbit turned, its eyes locked with Elena's once more. Slowly, it began to hop forward, its movements graceful and sure. Elena followed, and the man trailing behind her, and as they ventured deeper into the forest, she felt the first stirrings of something inside her, a strange, powerful pull, as though the earth itself was calling her home. The forest grew darker with each step, the trees looming taller, their branches twisting into the night sky. And yet, there was something comforting about it, something that whispered that she was on the right path. But as they neared the heart of the forest, the air grew heavier, colder, and Elena could feel a faint tremor beneath her feet. Something was coming, something that would change everything. The rabbit paused, looking back at her, its eyes gleaming with a warning. And then, all at once, the ground trembled beneath her feet. The tremor that rippled through the earth beneath Elena's feet sent a shiver through her spine, and the air around her seemed to hold its breath. The rabbit, whose paws had moved so gently just moments before, now stood still in the clearing, its amber eyes wide and alert. It gazed at her for a long moment, as though it were waiting for her to comprehend something hidden just beyond her reach. The man behind her shifted his weight, his cloak rustling softly in the stillness. Elena could feel his presence like a shadow, the weight of his gaze never leaving her. She turned toward him, her voice barely a whisper. "What was that? What's happening?" His expression remained calm, though there was a tension in his features that hadn't been there before. "It's begun," he said softly. "The earth is waking, but something stirs beneath it, something dark." Elena's heart pounded in her chest, the ground beneath her still vibrating with a faint, unsteady rhythm. She glanced down at the rabbit, whose eyes had not left hers. The creature's gaze seemed to carry a message, one that the world itself had not yet spoken. There was an undeniable pull, an ancient connection between them, something Elena couldn't name, but felt in her very bones. The man continued, his voice urgent but steady. "The heart of the forest is a place of great power. It is where the world's magic is most concentrated, where the balance is maintained. But something is threatening that balance. The rabbit has chosen you because it knows you're tied to that power." "But I don't understand," Elena whispered, her voice trembling. "How could I? Why me? I'm just a healer, a woman from a small village." The man's expression softened, though there was still an intensity in his eyes. "You're not just a healer, Elena. You are more than you realize. You're part of the cycle, part of something much older, much greater. The rabbit chose you because it knows the power that lies within you, even if you have yet to see it." Elena shook her head, trying to push away the gnawing fear that clawed at her chest. She had always felt connected to the earth, to the plants she healed with, but she had never imagined she would play such a role in something so ancient and vast. The weight of the responsibility was almost too much to bear. The rabbit began moving again, its soft paws patting through the underbrush. the night air brushing against its fur like a gentle caress. Without thinking, Elena followed. She had no choice but to trust it, to trust the strange man and the power that had come to her in this moment. The clearing began to shrink as they moved deeper into the forest. The trees here were older, their bark gnarled and twisted, their roots like veins running deep into the earth. The path became narrower, the air thicker with the scent of pine and damp earth. Elena could feel the change in the atmosphere, the energy that hummed through the forest like an unspoken language. She could feel the pull of the rabbit urging her forward, guiding her towards something unknown. The man was silent behind her, his steps steady but measured. It was as though he, too, was listening, waiting for the forest to reveal its secrets. The night seemed to stretch on forever as they moved deeper into the woods. The moonlight filtered through the canopy above, casting soft silver beams that flickered and danced on the forest floor. The air grew cooler, and Elena could feel a tension in the space around them, a tension that seemed to grow with every step. Then, as if the forest itself had exhaled, they emerged into a small, hidden glade. The trees parted to reveal a clearing unlike any Elena had seen before. It was bathed in the soft glow of moonlight, the air alive with a sense of magic, of something ancient and untouchable. The ground here was smooth and soft, covered in a blanket of moss that seemed to pulse with life. At the center of the glade stood an enormous tree, its trunk twisted and wide, its branches reaching high into the night sky. The tree's bark shimmered faintly, as if it were made of something other than wood, something older than the world itself. Elena felt the urge to approach it, but something, an invisible barrier, kept her at a distance, as though the tree was waiting for her to step closer in her own time. The rabbit stopped at the foot of the tree, turning its head back toward Elena, its eyes gleaming in the moonlight. It seemed to be beckoning her forward. "You must approach it," the man said quietly, his voice low and reverent. "This is the heart of the forest. This is where the balance of all things begins." Elena took a tentative step forward, her breath coming in shallow gasps as she neared the tree. She felt a wave of energy wash over her, a strange warmth that contrasted with the coolness of the night air. It was as though the very earth beneath her feet was alive, sending a pulse of energy into her bones, filling her with something she couldn't name. As she reached the tree, her fingers brushed against the smooth bark, and she felt a rush of images flood her mind. Visions of forests untouched by time, of spring unfurling across the land, of the first bloom of flowers breaking through the earth. There was something ancient in those visions, something older than her world, older than human memory. It was as if the tree itself was speaking to her, offering her a glimpse into the very fabric of life and death. And then, just as suddenly as it had come, the vision faded. Elena's hand fell away from the tree, and she stood there, gasping for breath, as the weight of what she had seen settled in her chest. "It's beautiful," she whispered, though the words seemed insufficient to capture the depth of what she had experienced. The man stepped forward, his expression unreadable. "It is more than beautiful. It is life itself, Elena. This is the heart of the world, the source of all that grows and changes. But something is wrong. The balance is breaking, and if we don't act, the very foundation of the earth will crumble." Elena turned to him, confusion and fear still clouding her thoughts. How do I fix it? What do I do? He looked at her for a long moment, his eyes searching hers, and for a moment she felt as though he were seeing something deep within her, something she hadn't even acknowledged herself. "You must trust the rabbit," he said finally. "The rabbit carries the key, the power to restore what has been broken. But it cannot do this alone. You must learn to wield the magic of the earth, Elena. You must become the healer the world needs." "But how?" she asked, her voice trembling with the weight of the task before her. "How can I possibly learn such a thing? I'm not what you think I am." The man stepped closer, his voice soft but firm. "You are more than you know. The earth chose you, Elena. The rabbit chose you. You are the key, whether you understand it or not." Before Elena could respond, the rabbit leapt forward, its paws striking the ground with a sudden, sharp rhythm. It moved in a quick circle and then stopped abruptly, turning to face Elena once more. Its amber eyes locked with hers, its gaze unwavering. The man stood behind her, watching the rabbit carefully. "It's time. The forest is awakening, but so is something else." Elena's heart raced as she stepped forward, her hands shaking. The rabbit's eyes were full of something she couldn't explain, something ancient and knowing. It was as though the creature was speaking to her without words, urging her to take the next step, to embrace her destiny. The ground beneath her feet trembled again, and this time it was stronger. The trees around them swayed, their branches creaking and groaning, as though something unseen was pushing against the very fabric of the forest. The night seemed to hold its breath, the stillness growing heavy with anticipation. The man's voice cut through the tension. "We must act quickly. There's no time left." Elena turned to him, her mind spinning, but she knew, deep down, that she had no choice. She stepped forward, closer to the rabbit, and with a single, steadying breath, she reached out, and as her fingers brushed against its fur, she felt a surge of power unlike anything she had ever known. A power that was ancient and alive, coursing through her veins like wildfire. But as the magic began to fill her, she felt something shift. A dark presence, a shadow lurking just beyond the edges of the clearing, watching, waiting. And then the earth beneath her feet cracked open. The ground split wide, a deep, dark chasm opening up beneath Elena and the man. The rabbit darted back in fear, its eyes wide as the darkness surged upward like a wave. Elena stumbled backward, her heart pounding in her chest. She could feel the power, the magic, beginning to slip through her fingers, as though it were being drawn away by the very darkness she had sensed. The man reached for her, his hand brushing hers in a desperate attempt to pull her away from the edge. But the darkness was too strong, and just as the earth began to swallow them whole, a voice, low, ancient, and full of malice, whispered from the depths of the chasm, "You're too late." The ground beneath Elena cracked wide, as though the very earth was being torn apart. She stumbled back, but it was too late. The darkness was already rising, swirling up from the deep crevasse, a dense, suffocating shadow that seemed to inhale the very light of the moon. For a moment, everything was quiet, too quiet, except for the sound of Elena's ragged breath and the rapid thump of her heart. Her hands shook, fingers clutching at the air as though she could grasp hold of something solid. The man beside her was frozen, his eyes wide, his face pale in the moonlight. "Get back," he shouted. but the words were barely audible over the unsettling, unnatural silence. Elena's legs felt weak, as though the earth itself was pulling her toward the chasm. Her entire body was stiff with fear, but something inside her, something deep within her soul, urged her to move. The rabbit, which had been darting frantically in the shadows, was now still, its fur bristling, its amber eyes glowing like twin lanterns in the dark. With one final desperate breath, Elena turned and ran. Her feet pounded against the moss-covered earth, slipping as she tried to push herself further away from the chasm. She could hear the man behind her, his footsteps quick and determined, but it wasn't enough. She could feel the pull of the darkness, like hands reaching from the depths of the earth, tugging at her every step. It was too strong, too powerful. Then the earth trembled again. A deep, resonating growl echoed from the depths, shaking the trees and sending a wave of panic through Elena's chest. The ground cracked wider, a jagged, glowing line of blue light flickering through the opening like lightning, racing through the darkness. She glanced back over her shoulder, her eyes wide with dread. The darkness had taken form now, shifting, coalescing into a shape far too large for the narrow chasm. A towering figure emerged from the deep fissure, its presence vast and suffocating. Its form was shadow and smoke, yet somehow tangible, like the embodiment of something ancient and forgotten. "Don't look at it," the man gasped, his voice strained with urgency. He was still running beside her, his hand reaching out to steady her. But Elena was too fixated on the creature. It was towering, its form a shifting mass of darkness that seemed to swallow the light of the moon whole. The creature's eyes gleamed like molten amber, fixed on her with a malice that made her blood run cold. The air around them thickened, growing heavier with every breath. "What is it?" Elena asked, her voice barely more than a whisper. She wanted to look away, but the creature's gaze held her captive, frozen in place. "It is the shadow of renewal," the man muttered, his face tightening in recognition. "It is the very opposite of what the rabbit represents. It feeds on the magic that sustains life. It seeks to undo the balance, to drag the world back into the abyss of eternal winter." Elena stumbled back, her heart racing. But how? How can we stop it?" The man looked at her, his expression grim. "The rabbit has chosen you for a reason. You must be the one to confront it. You must unlock the power within you to fight this creature." A pang of fear shot through Elena's chest, colder than the night air. "I can't," she said, her voice breaking. "I don't know how." "Trust yourself," the man urged. "Trust the earth. The magic is inside you. You just have to believe it." As if on cue, the rabbit darted forward, its white fur flashing like a streak of light. It moved between Elena and the shadow of renewal, its eyes locked onto the dark creature, unwavering. For a moment, the shadow hesitated, its form rippling, uncertain. Elena's breath caught in her throat. The rabbit's gaze was filled with a quiet determination that she had never seen before. It wasn't just a messenger. It was the key to the balance, the living embodiment of the magic that connected the earth, the seasons, the cycle of life and death. It was life. The creature roared, a sound that made Elena's bones rattle. But the rabbit didn't falter. Instead, it turned its head back toward her, its eyes gleaming with silent command. "Trust the earth. The words echoed in her mind like a whisper in the wind, a deep, ancient voice rising from within her soul. She could feel it now, the magic. It was there, buried deep inside her, waiting for her to acknowledge it. With trembling hands, Elena reached out toward the ground. Her fingertips brushed the moss-covered earth, and for the briefest moment, everything stilled. Then a pulse of energy surged from the earth beneath her, a warm, glowing force that wrapped around her like an embrace. She gasped, her heart pounding, as the energy flooded her veins. The magic, her magic, had been awakened. The shadow of renewal roared again, louder this time, as if it were angry that the magic had not been extinguished. It writhed in the air, its dark form swirling with malignant intent, but it couldn't touch her, not anymore. With a single, steadying breath, Elena closed her eyes and let the magic flow through her, letting it take control. She could feel the earth beneath her feet, the roots of ancient trees running deep in the soil, the cool moisture of the night air filling her lungs. It was a part of her now, coursing through her like blood in her veins. She raised her hands, and the world seemed to respond. The trees around her bent and creaked, their branches reaching up toward the sky like ancient hands grasping for the light. The ground beneath her feet hummed with life, and the air around her shimmered, alive with energy. The shadow of renewal recoiled, its eyes narrowing in anger. It howled, a sound that seemed to shake the very air itself, and lunged toward her. But Elena was ready. With a sharp, forceful motion, she thrust her hands toward the creature. The earth beneath her trembled, and the ground split, opening wide as roots burst forth from the soil, wrapping around the creature's dark form. The roots moved with lightning speed, binding the shadow, trapping it in place. The darkness writhed, but it could not escape. The air was thick with power, the pulse of the earth now a steady rhythm that beat in time with Elena's heart. She could feel the magic flowing through her, guiding her, protecting her. The shadow of renewal's roars grew desperate, but Elena's grip tightened. She could feel the creature weakening, its power beginning to drain as the roots held it fast. And then, with one final, forceful pull, Elena released the magic. The ground erupted beneath her feet, the roots tightening, and with a final, piercing cry, the shadow of renewal was pulled into the earth. The ground closed over it with a deafening roar, and the forest fell silent. The tension in the air slowly ebbed away, the weight of the darkness lifting. Elena's hands fell to her sides, her body trembling with exhaustion, but she felt a deep, profound sense of peace settle within her. The man stood behind her, his breath heavy as he watched the clearing slowly return to its natural state. The trees swayed gently in the breeze, their leaves rustling softly. The air, once thick with tension, now felt light, cool, and fresh. "Elena," the man said softly, his voice full of awe. "You did it. You've restored the balance." She turned toward him, her eyes wide, her chest rising and falling rapidly. The magic still hummed in her veins, a constant reminder of the power she now held. But she couldn't deny the exhaustion that tugged at her bones. The rabbit, too, seemed to sense the change. It hopped forward, its amber eyes soft and content, and nuzzled against her hand, as if offering its quiet approval. But Elena's mind was far from calm. There was still a question that gnawed at her, still a part of the mystery that had yet to be solved. "Why me?" she asked, her voice hoarse from the strain of the magic. What makes me the one to hold this power? The man stepped forward, his eyes meeting hers with a deep understanding. Because you were always meant to be. The earth chose you, Elena, just as it chose a rabbit. You are the bridge between the worlds, the guardian of the balance. Her heart swelled with a mixture of disbelief and awe. She wasn't just a healer anymore. She was something else, something deeper. And though the night had been dark and filled with peril, she had emerged stronger, more certain of her path than ever before. The rabbit nuzzled her hand again, and Elena smiled, the weight of the world feeling a little lighter in that moment. But she knew, deep down, that her journey was far from over. The forest had been saved, but there were still mysteries to uncover, still forces at work in the world that she had yet to understand. And somewhere, deep in the earth, the shadow of renewal was waiting, biding its time, and the balance was far from secure. But as the rabbit turned and began to hop away, its eyes fixed on something just beyond the trees, Elena felt a shiver run down her spine. Something was still out there, something she couldn't yet see, and it was moving closer. The moon hung heavy in the sky, its pale light casting long shadows over a forest floor. Elena stood still, her breath slow and steady, but something had changed. The air was thick now, as if holding its breath, waiting for something, waiting for her. The rabbit had stopped hopping and turned its amber gaze to something deeper in the woods, its tiny ears twitching with alertness. "Do you feel it?" the man beside her asked. His voice was low, almost a whisper, as though speaking too loudly might break the fragile calm that had settled over the forest. He stood slightly behind Elena, his dark eyes scanning the shadows, his hand resting on the hilt of his sword. Elena closed her eyes for a moment, inhaling deeply. There it was, a subtle tension in the air, a faint hum beneath the rustling of the leaves. The quiet was almost too still, like the moment before a storm. She felt it deep in her bones, a pull, like the earth itself was tugging her towards something she could not yet see. "Yes," she murmured, her voice barely more than a breath. "Something's coming." The rabbit turned toward her, its body tense, its fur standing on end. It was watching her closely, its eyes gleaming with an intelligence that was both unsettling and comforting. The bond between them, forged in that moment of life and death, had grown stronger. The magic between them was no longer just a whisper in her heart. It was a roaring fire, fierce and bright. "I don't understand," Elena whispered, glancing toward the man, her brow furrowed. "If the shadow is sealed beneath the earth, then why do I feel like something else is coming? Something worse?" The man did not answer immediately. Instead, he turned his gaze back to his forest, his expression unreadable. When he spoke again, his voice was heavy, laden with something Elena couldn't quite place, something ancient and sorrowful. "Because the shadow is not the only darkness in this world, Elena. There are other forces at play, forces that feed on fear, on despair, on the imbalance of nature itself." Elena felt her pulse quicken, the weight of his words settling like stones in her stomach. She had always thought of the earth's magic as a force of life, something to protect, something to nurture. But now, standing in the moonlight, surrounded by the quiet of the trees, she wondered how fragile that balance truly was. "You've restored one part of the balance," the man continued, stepping closer to her, his voice quiet but urgent. But there are forces beyond the physical world that also influence the flow of nature, the realms of the unseen, and they have noticed you. Elena swallowed, her throat tight. What do you mean? Who are they? He hesitated, and for the first time, she saw something like fear in his eyes. The man was not afraid of the shadow of renewal. That had been clear. But this was different. They are the keepers, he said softly, almost as if the name itself were a curse. Spirits of the forgotten world, older than the earth itself. They've been watching over the balance for centuries, but they are no longer content to merely observe. They want to control it. Control? Elena repeated, her voice a low, confused murmur. The man nodded, his gaze locked on her. The keepers see you as an anomaly. The magic inside you is pure, untouched. They cannot allow that kind of power to remain unchecked. If they take control of it, the world will shift. The seasons will become uncertain. The land will wither, and chaos will reign. Elena's heart beat faster now, her mind racing with the weight of his words. What do I do? The man's lips parted as if to speak, but no words came. Instead, he reached for her arm gently, his fingers cool against her skin, and led her a few steps away from the rabbit, which was still watching them with wide, unblinking eyes. You must understand, he said, his voice grave. The keepers are not just shadows. They are the remnants of ancient spirits, guardians of forgotten realms. They hold power over the unseen. They can turn the tide of nature with a thought, with a flicker of their will. And now they are drawn to you. Elena's mind reeled. She had barely come to terms with the magic she had inherited, with the deep, pulsing force of the earth that she now controlled. The rabbit, the messenger, the guide, had shown her a path. But this was something new, something darker. But why me? Elena whispered. Why am I the one they want? The man studied her, his eyes narrowing. Because you are the heir to the ancient magic, Elena. The rabbit is a guide, a protector of this magic, and it chose you. But the keepers, they will stop at nothing to claim what is theirs. The wind shifted then, a cool breeze that seemed to bring with it a sense of foreboding. Elena turned, and for a brief moment, the forest seemed to breathe with her, alive, pulsing, humming with an energy that was just beneath the surface. She felt it again, the pull, a voice, faint but distinct, calling to her from the depths of the trees. Do you hear it? Elena asked, her voice trembling with a strange excitement. There's something out there, something calling. The man stiffened. Do not listen to it, he warned, his voice low, his grip on her arm tightening. That is the call of the keepers. They are trying to lure you in, to distract you. But I have to go, Elena said, her voice steady now, her hand reaching out toward the trees. I have to know what's calling to me. The man's face was grim as he watched her, and in that moment, Elena understood something. This man, this traveler, this guardian, was afraid. He was afraid of what she might discover, of what might happen if she followed the call of the keepers. But Elena knew, deep within her, that this was part of her journey. The rabbit was still with her, watching from the shadows, its eyes glowing softly in the night. It seemed to understand, as though it had known all along that this moment would come. Stay close, the man said, his voice strained. But be careful. The keepers may appear to you in forms you cannot trust. They will offer you power, Knowledge, but it will come at a price. Elena nodded, but her heart was already racing with the need to follow the pull, the call. She had been chosen for this, and she would not turn back now. The forest seemed to grow darker as they walked deeper into the woods, the path ahead barely visible in the low light of the moon. The only sound was the crunch of leaves beneath their feet, the occasional whisper of the wind. The air smelled of pine and earth, cool and damp, and the night was quiet, eerily quiet. Then, ahead of them, the trees began to part, revealing a clearing bathed in silvery light. And there, standing in the center of the clearing, was a figure. It was a woman, tall, regal, with long hair that shimmered like the moonlight itself. Her eyes, though, were darker than the night, black as the deepest shadows, and they seemed to stare right through Elena, into the very depths of her soul. "You've come," the woman said, her voice soft but commanding, echoing through the clearing. Elena froze. Her heart raced as the woman took a slow step toward her, the air growing colder with every movement. "Who are you?" Elena asked, her voice trembling. The magic inside her surged, but she could feel the darkness in the woman's gaze, a power unlike anything she'd felt before. "I am one of the keepers," the woman said with a smile that did not reach her eyes. "And you are the one we've been waiting for." Elena's pulse quickened as the woman extended her hand, her fingers glowing with an ethereal light. "Come, child," she whispered. "Come and join us. You are meant for so much more than you realize. Your power could change the world." The rabbit, which had followed them silently into the clearing, now let out a sharp, urgent cry, a warning, and Elena understood. The call wasn't an invitation, it was a trap. Her heart pounded in her chest as she stepped back, pulling away from the woman's gaze. She had to fight this. She had to resist. But deep inside, Elena knew that this was only the beginning, and a real battle for the balance of the world was just about to unfold. The woman's smile deepened, and her voice became a low, almost hypnotic murmur. "It is not too late, Elena. Come to us. Let the Earth's magic be your guide, and together we can reshape the world. Don't resist. You're destined to join us." Elena's heart raced, the pull of the woman's words growing stronger with every second. But she could feel the rabbit's presence behind her, its soft, reassuring warmth. With a final glance back at the man, Elena stepped forward, unsure whether she was walking toward salvation or ruin. "Good night, sweet dreams. May the balance of the earth always guide you, just as it guides Elena. Let the whispers of the wind soothe your mind as you drift into peaceful slumber." you.
you.